sister.
Hi. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
It's been a week, but guess what? We are going to be okay. We are going to be
Yes,
okay.
it was cold in Baltimore this morning.
Well, I
Sister.
work from home, so I didn't. I just turned on that space here, and I was okay.
Oh, so the traffic on the stairs was incredible this morning,
It was
correct?
still the hallway. The cat and the dog just. Oh my gosh,
Some of us are not so lucky and had to brave the 27-degree weather today.
I'm cold for you.
So, we are here tonight to talk about World AIDS Day.
Yeah.
In our chapter, the Beta Lambda chapter of Beta Phi Omega Sorority Incorporated is hosting our World AIDS Day program. My name is Latoya Williams. I currently serve as the chapter president of the Beta Lambda chapter, and this is
Hi, I am Sabrina Garrett. I'm new. I'm new. I am definitely a newbie. Um, and I am here to help out my lustrous sister in this effort to inform and educate our public.
so Sabrina. World AIDS Day. What does World AIDS Day mean to you?
It means so much. It hits close to home. I've had people I've known, an uncle of mine who actually passed from AIDS, and he was one of the greatest people I've ever known in my life. Um,
Oh,
Such a sweet man. He could build a house from the ground up, and he would do anything for his family. So it means a lot, and to pass the knowledge and to pass the information needed for people to get treatment, get detection, and all of it is very important. How about you? What does it mean to you?
so like you said, World AIDS Day means a lot. HIV and AIDS has hit close to home for me as well, friends and family. Um, and it always seems to hit the people that are the most loving, the most sweet, the most kind, the ones that you think could live forever and have like this incredible zeal for life. So I'm honored to be able to do this on behalf of our organization, but also to bring about some awareness. One of the things that we'll be discussing today, which I think a lot of people kind of lose sight of, is the advancements in treatment.
Yes.
So over the years, this pandemic has been around for what, over 30 years now, right?
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
the 80s when it hit the hardest, and um, people were dying left and right. The blessing now is with the advancement of science and technology, treatment has gotten to a place where a lot of people, they're living, thriving
Yes. Yes. A whole lot
for
longer.
years. Exactly.
It's not just the ones who have it, but also the ones who, prevention is the best thing for anything we have, right?
Absolutely. You said it, sister. You absolutely said it.
Prevention is the best thing. And with that, we really need to support whether our community becomes in our community about prevention. Because one day maybe we can go back.
Your sound is going out a little bit.
Hmm.
Oh, you're back, just like that. Oh, and our soror just said, let's begin to end the stigmas. Absolutely. So we know that a lot of people are not getting treatment, who are not going to know their status because they're afraid of the stigma.
Without a doubt, you have to understand that. Um, I think, in my opinion, stigmas are they exist from ignorance, and then
Absolutely. And
and then
fear.
yes, definitely, and that's part of the information that we have to put out there. That's definitely
Absolutely.
part of the information.
So we have some amazing guests this evening to come aboard to discuss this topic with us. So first, I'd like to introduce Dr. Chandy Banerjee. Hi, Dr. Banerjee.
Hi there.
So I'm going to read a brief introduction. So Dr. Banerjee is the Chief Physician of the Division of Infectious Diseases at Medstar Good Samaritan Hospital. Dr. Banerjee has over 34 years of experience in the medical field. She graduated from the University of Maryland Medical School and was named a top doctor in the Baltimore Magazine for Infectious Diseases in 2019 and 2020. Once again, welcome, Dr. Banerjee.
Thank you for having me. You can hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you very good.
Great, great. Now, this is, such a wonderful occasion because, as you said, the advances that we have made in HIV. I mean, my career, my infectious disease career started with when we had essentially nothing to offer our patients,
Mm,
and it was devastating.
mm,
When basically at that time it was young men that were coming in, had advanced HIV infection, and we just had nothing to offer them.
mm,
And
Wow.
now, as you mentioned, one pill once a day, and you can basically lead a normal life. You can have children, you can have normal relationships, um, you can be just fine, and basically it could be treated like a chronic disease. So, as you said, wonderful advancements. It's been an incredible. I think it's a medical, miracle what's happened over the last 35 years. So it's great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And our next guest?
Our next guest, we have Deborah Dunn. Are you there?
Hi there. Thanks for having me on also. I appreciate the invite. I'm, a
Thank
tra-
you.
I'm the transgender health coordinator and on family practice PA with a specialty in transgender and non-binary LGBTQ medicine. I have a large number of patients with HIV and PrEP. I see children and I see adults, and I agree that started practicing in 1984. And I was actually in the emergency room when those cases were coming in. I was the last person holding those hands when they passed. It was so stigmatized. There were people who families wouldn't come in, um,
Wow.
doctors wouldn't touch them. And a lot of them were my actual friends. And
It's sad that that's where it started, but I'm really excited and happy with where it's as far as it's come and where it's going.
mhm,
Yes.
yeah.
So we have a lot of questions for you, and we want to encourage our Facebook and YouTube audience to chime in, to ask questions. We have some professionals here to give you some good information. So I'll start. Um, can you explain how race plays a role in prevention, detection, and treatment?
Well, I mean, the numbers say it all. The vast majority of patients with HIV in Maryland are African American. So I think it may have to do with access to care, poverty, perhaps, unstable housing, stigma, I think plays a big role. And I think people are afraid, potentially afraid to get tested, and then if they get tested, they don't know how they're going to handle it, what they're going to do, what's going to be a reaction of their friends and their family. And I think, as you say, if we could just put the word out that this is a highly, highly treatable disease, that I think that'd be very helpful.
Yeah. And I don't think most people realize the staggering numbers. I did write some down for you. Of all the people who have HIV, 42% are Black African American.
Mm,
To me, you might as well say half, because 42% is as close to 50% as you can get.
Right.
Um, of the HIV infections among Blacks and African Americans, 61% were attributed to male sexual contact. Right, and so the rate is like 9 times higher than that of whites and other cultures. I
mm,
still don't understand. I do understand through the social determinants of health, living through poverty and joblessness and homelessness and stigma and discrimination still is what kind of separates us. But it bothers me a lot that HRSA and CDC and other federal governments don't give enough funding to really kind of battle this group of people, because they're like, we're winning the war on HIV, but look at this number. And then
Right.
with transgender Black women, it's 56%. And so that's more than one out of every two. Another group that I don't think people know about is the 13 to 24, the adolescents.
Yes. I was
The
reading that.
African American, they're now one of the largest percentage of HIVs among Black and African Americans. And you talk about poor access to care. How do people who are 13 to 24 years old really do have poor access? No one is testing them for HIV. The pediatricians, And there's so much stigma with people saying, I'm not giving PrEP or to children. But in the state of Maryland now, we can prescribe PrEP without a parental consent.
Without parental consent.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's
But
similar to birth control. And it
yep,
took years to get birth control to that
right.
place.
Yeah, and treatment for they can get treated for all the STIs, including HIV. But yeah, but there's barriers to that. And a lot of the reasons why I don't think the African Americans are getting tested and being seen and taken care of is because of poor access.
For access to
Doc,
care.
yeah, doctors, not really taught a lot about transgender people, and they're not comfortable, and there's still a lot of stigma with HIV, so they're not wanting to even see the patients. We're still kind of behind the eight ball with that.
And that's unfortunate.
And
Also,
then,
I mean, I think the other thing that's important to note is that any practitioner can prescribe PrEP. You
yes,
don't have to be a specialist. You don't have to, be cognizant. You just have to know the three things you have to test for, and then you can prescribe PrEP. And it's very easy. And it works like well over 95% of the time. So, I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, it's a huge, huge step in trying to prevent the transmission of HIV.
absolutely. And there's the largest number of undiagnosed infections are at, again, 13 to 24-year-old group.
Yeah.
Right. And
I mean,
transgender women of color too. They're not being tested.
and actually I can see that because 13 to 24, you're going to see your pediatrician. They wouldn't think to test you. You know what I mean? Like, I guess unless you're
I think
sexually active, go ahead, Sabrina.
I think that's also where the mindset needs to shift
Right.
with the times of today. You think they're going to see their pediatrician and that's all fine, and they're being sexually active.
Oh yeah.
You can't hold them in two separate buckets. They are in the same
Mm.
bucket. So we have to have those conversations even early. If that is part of prevention, then let's have those conversations early.
I
Right.
mean, they're not teaching LGBTQ sex ed and in middle schools and high schools. A lot of these kids don't know how you can get HIV transmitted.
Wow. So there is a direct correct correlation between STIs, STDs,
Hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
HIV prevention.
Well, HIV in and of itself is a sexually transmitted disease, essentially. The vast majority of people who have HIV nowadays, either it's men who have sex with men or heterosexual transmission. It's much, much lower in the people who use injection, who use drugs. So it is a sexually transmitted disease. So anytime you see anybody with any STD, essentially, the dictum now is you should check them for HIV as well, because they go together. If you're going to get one STD, you're probably going to get another.
Right.
And so, that's the teaching nowadays is that, you test for it all.
Hmm. Yeah. And because of PrEP, a lot of people are not using condoms or
Yes.
protection. And I'm seeing so much syphilis and
So much
syphilis, gonorrhea, chlamydia,
Yep.
like
Oh,
every week.
Yeah.
There's a lot of this. Well, on PrEP, I'm not going to get HIV, so I'm a bareback, or I'm going to, take the condom off and then have the orgasm. It's a lot of misconceptions around that. Yeah, because it's not good to have syphilis, gonorrhea, chlamydia either. But
Right. Right.
everybody just relates to death with HIV. So it's giving people kind of like a false pretense of not getting the other STIs.
Right. I try and
well,
emphasize when I do give PrEP, I just emphasize, you still have to use protection.
Right.
Because I'm seeing you for your syphilis or I'm seeing you for your gonorrhea,
Mhm.
but you got to use protection, But
Right.
Sabrina, you had a
so
question?
yes, one of my questions is asymptomatic people. How often is that come across and you guys feels like, is that something that's regular? Is that something that's irregular?
the vast majority of patients are asymptomatic.
Yep.
And it's interesting, most women who are diagnosed get it through heterosexual transmission. Most of the men, well, not most of, but good number of men get it through men who have sex with men, but the women tend to present later. It's because it can lie dormant for 10 years. Like you may not know at all that you have it.
Yeah.
It may initially be a little febrile illness, like you think you have a cold, you feel like you got a little flu, and then you move on. That's all you have. And then years later, you can be diagnosed. So it
So
can
is
like.
it something that
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, is it something that essentially hides in your system, or is it something that even if you're asymptomatic and you get tested once a year, you can detect it?
You can detect it. Once
Okay.
you're infected, if you get tested, then you will be diagnosed within it takes probably within about, you can maybe be negative initially within about like initial 4 weeks, but after that you'll be detected.
It'll show up in your system.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as
How
far as
often?
I'm sorry.
How often would you suggest someone get tested?
Well, most of my patients, all of my patients are LGBTQ, so I know that it's one of the top 3 health disparities. So people who really are at risk come every 3 months when they get tested.
Oh,
Wow.
And a lot of physicians aren't really comfortable asking sexual behavior questions. They're not asking people. They're like, I'm not going to ask people if they have anal sex. We know that's one of the number one ways that HIV
right.
is transmitted, and people are just not asking the questions, and they're not testing, and they're not comfortable asking the questions.
So
But
we have a question from one of our viewers, and her question is that her ex-girlfriend was tested positive in 2014, showed no sign until 2020. Should she still get tested even though they broke up in 2016?
yes, yeah, because she was technically. Oh, wait a minute.
No.
What the genders of the 2 people?
Female.
Yeah.
Both of them are female.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a skin to skin contact. A lot of people don't know about sexually transmitted infections that's transmitted between vaginas, vaginal. I call it V to V sex. And anytime, and it's a skin contact infection. So anytime you're grinding or your skin is touching and there's body fluids exchanging, you can get syphilis. But it's really hard for people who are having skin to skin contact to get HIV. It doesn't involve mucous membranes. But I recommend that everybody get syphilis tested, HIV tested, and Hep C tested annually.
Annually. Okay.
Does that still hold? Does that standard still hold true for those who are in areas that are considered hotspots?
Oh yeah. Well, the people who are at greater risk, again, I
Mhm.
test them very frequently.
Right.
I set them up with appointments every 3 months. A lot of my adolescents, I have a lot of adolescents that really are actively trying to get HIV because they're kind of homeless. They've been put out by their family, and look, I've noticed that people with HIV are getting benefits. They're getting housing, they're getting insurance, they're getting food,
Oh my goodness.
they're getting loved on, and so it is sad. It really is. And so I see them pretty often because they're not trying to protect themselves from getting
Wow.
To go
HIV.
back to that first question, I mean, if 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 you're broken up in 2016 or whatever, and I mean at this point you're not going to have, and you've been tested serially, or at least initially, you're not going to get HIV from that exposure. Maybe from another exposure, but not from
But
that
not from that one.
exposure.
Right.
Right. Just so you
Mhm.
know.
Oh, okay. So you have been tested before. I thought the question was that you had not been tested at all.
Right. And then also, again, to what Deb's saying, in terms of like anytime my patients have PrEP, I see them every 3 months.
Yep.
And I do STD testing on them every 3 months. And that includes pharyngeal, rectal, urine, the whole thing,
Yep.
because it could be anywhere.
Wow.
So we all know that, and as we have spoke, how modern medicine has advanced us in a way where we have PrEP and we can live a lot longer with the diagnosis of HIV and or AIDS. In your medical opinion, in your professional opinion, do you think it's as deadly as it used to be?
Well, if you're not treated, there will be. But what I tell my patients is that essentially, if you come to me at age 18 and have HIV and start treatment, I mean, essentially, in my book, you can lead a normal lifespan.
Yeah.
And you will have a normal lifespan. Other things may occur. You can get cancer, or you can get high blood pressure, or diabetes, or whatever. But the HIV itself is not going to be the thing that's your death sentence by any means. So basically, you can take your medicine, as I said, 1 pill a day, and be good. That's exactly.
And as far as PrEP being preventive, it's very low adherence in transgender people. And transgender Black women now, 56%, more than 1 out of every 2. And even the studies have done at Hopkins by a good friend of mine, Dr. Tonya Petit. And the studies are showing that the adherence is like 8 to 9%.
Wow.
100% sexually having sex. They are aware of PrEP and PEP, but the adherence is very low. And so PrEP really isn't winning the war on HIV in the transgender community. But I do agree that we got to start harm reduction programs. We got to help with the housing, the homelessness, the poverty, all of those things in order to kind of stop and block the transmission from HIV, because all of those are contributing.
Can you explain the
So
difference between PrEP and PEP?
it's same
We were on
question.
the
I was
same
just gonna.
page, sister.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Good.
PrEP is a preventive. So you take it when you're HIV negative, and it's an HIV medication that you take every day, and it will prevent you from getting HIV. PEP
That's
is
PrEP.
post-exposure. That's PrEP. And
Pre
then PEP is
Pre-exposure prophylaxis PrEP, right?
right,
Okay.
and the PEP is post-exposure. Oh wow, I had sex unprotected, and within 72 hours, you can get on an HIV regimen that will help prevent you from getting HIV from that exposure.
But that's
So
a
I have
drug. That's a 3-drug regimen. That's like getting treated for HIV for 28 days.
28.
so a cocktail of medicines.
Right, exactly. The full cocktail versus
Yep.
the PrEP is 2 drugs.
Mhm.
And the full cocktails usually, it's not 100% up, but usually is 3 drugs.
So is PrEP and or PEP suggested for any other population other than the male on male population?
Oh, everybody,
Yeah,
everybody that has interceptive vaginal and rectal sex
yeah.
Mhm.
and it's everybody. So if you have a 75-year-old and the doctor's like, there's no way she's having anal sex. Well, you better bet she is. You better ask because she probably is. But I can't ask my grandmother if she's having anal play. Yes, you can, and you have to, or you'll be missing
Right.
the opportunity to test her.
Save her life. Really.
Yep. Yeah,
Right.
PrEP is definitely offered to women. In women, it takes a little longer to take effect. It takes about 3 weeks before you have the full effect, just because the way it penetrates the vaginal mucosa. And for men, it's about 7 days.
And that was my next question, because all of the advertisements that I've seen for PrEP are geared
Mhm.
towards men. It
Mhm.
doesn't seem
Exactly.
like it's about women, that is for women. And even when they've discussed transgender population, they've even, it's not talking about women transitioning to men. It's always the other way. Is there a reason why the marketing for those drugs is different?
Well, definitely, I'm seeing that type of marketing also. That there's no data on transgender men. Period. Like no one's collecting that kind of data. There's very few studies. We do know transgender women are getting HIV at this markedly high rate.
Right.
But the people who were assigned female at birth, who have female genitals, it's really disturbing for me that they weren't included in clinical trials for the latest HIV prevention medicine, which is Descovy. So we still have Truvada, which is generic now, but can be associated with some adverse reactions like bone health and kidneys. but it's just unbelievable. Like that's some real 1950 stuff. Why would you do anything
Right.
why would you put on a market a medication that all of us are at risk of getting, which is HIV, and don't include us in clinical trials? I will never ever, be able to figure that out.
Dr. Banerjee,
Well,
have you noticed the marketing for the drugs geared towards men as well?
It does seem to be, but I definitely have women who are in. It's really the women are really more in just what I call discordant relationships, where their partner's HIV positive, um,
I see.
and they want to be on PrEP, and those are the main women that I see who are on PrEP. But I've not seen it as much in
Single
other
women.
settings. Yeah, exactly.
I see.
Exactly. Yeah.
It looks like we have a question from one of our viewers. If you're HIV positive and are undetectable, can you have unprotected sex when in a committed relationship?
Well, I think it's a U equals U, right? The undetectable equals untransmissible. So many studies, many good, well-run studies have shown that once you're undetectable, for a period of time, that you basically will not be transmitting HIV. So that's one of the reasons that we really, really push treatment. That's one of the, besides your own health, it's that it can decrease the transmission of the of HIV. It's a great way to stop the spread of disease.
Yeah. What I see is a lot of people, not a lot, but some people doing hookups from dating apps, and they'll put on there, I'm on PrEP or I'm undetected, and I know my patients are late picking up their prescriptions. They they're missing doses. I'm undetected. Did you have a picture prescription up for a month? You're like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, it kind of scares me a little bit that
Yeah.
U equals U, because I know how people are not compliant. But there are some people that take those pills every day.
Faithfully.
I was in
Right.
a committed relationship and we both tested negative. I feel like I would be comfortable.
Yeah. It
Right.
goes back to the honor system.
Uh,
It goes back to that honor system.
Right.
yeah.
You're
Yeah.
hoping that people are being honest with you about their status.
yes.
Right.
But you can also do things like make it a date. Let's go get tested together and let's disclose our statuses together. We also have to be responsible for our own health. And that includes asking people and not being ashamed of it. Yes, there is a stigma around it. And in order to move to, like I said, eradicate this at some point, we also have to move on ourselves.
I mean, in my personal opinion, I think that if you're at a place where you're ready to be physically intimate with someone, then these are hard questions that you should feel comfortable asking if you're comfortable becoming physically intimate.
Yes.
Right. You have to ask that, though. It's so, it is hard. I can just imagine how difficult that would be, but I think it's really, really important. I mean, and the other very unfortunate thing is, I have patients who are so isolated and so lonely because they just cannot get over the stigma. They just, or the thought that it will create, it's going to be such a stigma to them. I mean, they and I are the only persons in the world that know what's going on with them, and it's just,
It's heartbreaking.
It's very sad, so isolating, and just, it's just not right.
Another question: if you come up undetectable, how often should that person get tested to make sure they stay undetectable?
It depends where they are in the treatment process. If they've just started treatment, we test every 3 months for the first 2 years. And then depending where the CD4 count is and where the viral load is, then it usually goes out to every 6 months. And then eventually you can even go out to maybe once a year, depending how well they're doing.
So you just mentioned viral load. Can you explain what that actually means to us?
Yeah, when we detect HIV infection, there's two things we monitor. One is called the CD4 count. That's your T cell count. And that tells you where your immune system is at that moment in time. And the viral load is the amount of virus in like 1 cc of blood. And that's the higher the viral load, the quicker the disease will proceed. So you will get sicker quicker the higher your viral load. Like I've had patients with viral loads of over 3 million, and you know that they're going to, proceed very quickly in the disease process. But the good news is, again, we can, with our medications, which are so effective now, we can get that viral load down to what's called undetectable. And undetectable is what we call, it depends on the test, sometimes it's less than 200, less than 20.
Oh, wow.
And we have many, many patients who achieve that very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a loaded question. What has been some of your biggest observations in treatment in your practices?
Well, for me personally, it's been the journey of starting at the beginning in terms of how devastating it was and how we had nothing to offer. And as Deb said, it was just, heartbreaking, to now being able to say to somebody who comes to you, obviously very upset, very concerned, thinking that they've got a death sentence, and to let them know, hey, you take this pill, you're going to be fine, you're going to feel fine, you're going to look fine, no one's going to know if you don't want them to know,
Right.
and you're going to lead a normal life. And I mean, that's just phenomenal to me.
Yeah, same with me. It's 2021 and we're still criminalizing people who are doing, I call it transactional sex. They used to call it survival sex, then they used to call it sex workers, then they used to call it street walkers. But anyway, transactional sex is I give you something and you give me something back in return.
Right.
So I may, have sex with you, but I can get $25. I may be able to stay at a hotel, get food, get a week,
Housing, it could be anything. Yeah.
right. And so, but if you're 13 years old and you're transactional sex, you can go to jail. And so instead of criminalizing people, we should take them in, give them a voice, because there's value in people speaking their truth. Because if you've not walked the walk of a person who's HIV positive, you can't pretend like you know the life that lived experience that they're having. So I think we should give more voice to people who are HIV positive. Let them help us to come up with curriculum and programs and policies that will better serve you. Because who better would know that than the person who's living that truth?
Yeah.
Instead of like coming from a source of power, we should be asking, how are you feeling? How is it impacting your life? What can we do to support you? How can we keep you safe in the streets? How can we keep you from not getting murdered and violence? And recommend what we can do to help other people like you. So we need to give more
Right.
power into the people who are actually living these truths.
And one of the things I wanted to ask also is how can we better get our community on board? Like, what can we do to raise awareness? How can we reduce the stigma? Do I need to have, a group of people to the doctor's office and take them home? Like, what is it that we can do as an everyday person to assist?
Well, again, I believe in partnership, partnershiping with community people who are trans, non-binary, LGBTQ organizations, and let them bring them to the table. Have
Yeah.
focus groups, work together collaboratively, and then you can have testing. We have a van that will come where you are. We have parties and the thing is sitting right out in front of the party. And, but I think that you won't know what people need and if you don't ask them. And people appreciate it when they're involved in the process.
Right.
You gotta start involving people in the process.
What about you,
So
Dr. Banerjee?
Well, I agree completely with what Deb's saying. I think we need to be inclusive. We need to, and I don't know how to get rid of this. I mean, I guess you'll never get rid of the stigma as such, but I think you just have to be brave. The patients just have to be brave and just sort of say, hey, this is not me. This is just what I have. I also have high blood pressure. I have diabetes, and I wear red clothes, and I do this, I do that. It's just, it doesn't define who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can just empower people to be able to go out there and just lead life the way on their terms, the way they want to lead it. And I don't know. I mean, I think the churches, are obviously a big part of, big part of
Yeah.
the community. And I think initially, I think there was a lot of stigma stuff associated at that time, but I think it's opening up quite a bit.
Yes.
And, but I think that's really, a big part of, and I always tell my patients, bring your family in. I'm happy to talk to them, whoever you want me to talk to, kids, grandma, whoever, it's not a problem. Just bring them in. We'll all just chat, and I can explain to them what the deal is.
So
I really agree with it. I just want to say real quick, I absolutely agree with that. It's going to take a village. It's going to take a village. It's going to involve neighbors, family, people, places of worship, everybody to, we're going to have to all become little civil rights leaders. We're going to have to go and fight for laws that protect the human rights of everybody. We got to, because it cannot be fair that I look transgender and you don't give me an apartment. And so therefore I have these degrees and I can't get a job. Things like that.
Right.
We gotta pass laws. Then that's how we're gonna fight.
So it's interesting that you say the churches and the community and such. What about going, as we talk about, one of the hardest hit populations are the 13 to 24 year olds. What about going into the schools? How do you guys feel about that?
Absolutely.
I think it's really important. Me and a pediatric endocrinologist that I work with, we were actually on this committee with the Board of Education because we feel like these folks need to start early. You need the kindergartners and first graders need to be able to open a book and like, oh, that's me. I'm non-binary, or that's what that's what my struggle is about. And I'm telling you, I can't tell you enough that they got to put sex ed in these classes. They absolutely have to. But then we learned that the Board of Educations were on board, but it depended on the principals of the different schools. The principals of the different schools would say, we're not bringing that into our.
Oh, how unfortunate.
I know, right?
I mean, I remember being a kid and wanting to do certain things. I wanted to be a newscaster, believe it or not. Can you tell? And I didn't see a lot of Black women newscasters, right? You just didn't see that on TV. And by the time I really saw someone in mainstream, it was Oprah. Now, fast forward, I'm in college, I'm studying accounting at this point. So, news reporting or, being on television or having a TV show or anything like that just seemed like a really far-fetched dream. I think that had I seen more people that look like me on television, I may have been more inspired to pursue my dream.
Representation is everything.
It absolutely matters. And I think that is the same thing with LGBTQ plus people as well. Whether we're talking about sex education, HIV, AIDS, and awareness, or just different career fields, representation matters. We have to be able to allow our people, our community, to tell our stories.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's really what it boils down to.
Absolutely. And it bothers, like, again, I hate to keep hopping on this, but why are these federal governments that are like regulating these clinics and stuff, letting these disparities, not doing anything about the disparities? Like,
now, I did read that the CDC had several grants, $1 million grants that were offered to hotspots and communities, but I don't think that they specifically targeted Black, MSM, transgender. I just know that the money was given, right? I think what should happen, us as activists, right? We have to start writing our grants. We have to start petitioning CDC.
Yes.
That's
yes.
powerful.
So, and with all that money being distributed, my primary care is an advocate for HIV/AIDS awareness and and prevention and such. Many of her clients have that illness, and one of the things her and I talked about was her applying for grants to get money to do more work. And if you know how to get those funds, if you don't have access to those funds, it's harder to do that work to educate the community, to continue the prevention at the level that you need it.
Right. What's missing is data collection, what they call it SOGI data, sexual orientation, gender identity. Because what I've been hearing, I've gone and talked to several health departments, is that we do have all this money. You know, they are giving us a certain percentage of these monies. But, you know, we don't see transgender people with HIV, and it rolls back in every year. And I just want to drop to the ground every time someone says that. Because, you know, if you were collecting data of people's gender and not their sex, you know, assigned sex or birth, then you would know, like, teach the doctors who are reporting these diseases how to collect data on gender and sexual orientation. So,
wow, Deb, that's a whole discussion for a whole nother day. It really is.
At least 2 discussions.
I mean, but I completely understand. I think lack of education, lack of awareness, is a roadblock. Is a huge roadblock. And we as activists, we have to be in the forefront of these discussions. We have to be writing the grants. We have to be in the doctor's offices. We have to lead discussion groups. You know, diversity training, like all of that has to happen on many levels so that we can get the word out. Right.
Important.
We got to sit at those tables and open those doors.
That's I just got accepted a commissioner position for the state of Maryland. I got a letter from Larry Hogan yesterday.
Congratulations.
I'm so tired of, I'm serious, seeing my patients dying and, you know, getting sick and not getting taken care of properly. Because I'm telling you, I am going to write policy and laws, and they are going to get passed.
All right.
And I wasn't having innocent was fooling my thumbs. So pray for me, but I am going to be
That's amazing.
Congratulations.
That is amazing.
Well, I think, you know, as you said, I mean, we have the medications, and Maryland is actually very blessed in terms of we've got great access to be able to provide medications to our patients. You know, and no matter what insurance they have, they can get medications. But it's all the other things, you know, housing, like where they're going to live, you know, what work are they going to be doing? Are they living in a boarded up place? You know, what they're eating and, you know, food. It's just all the other things that come in. It's not just the medicine, you know.
And if you don't have these things, then you're more likely to get HIV. That's the impact. Yeah,
absolutely.
Because if you're thinking about it, if I'm concerned about where I'm going to lay my head, or if I'm going to have something to eat, am I really going to be trying to get to the doctor?
No.
Right.
That's also part of that transactional sex area.
Right.
Absolutely.
So that's what happened with COVID. You know, homelessness is definitely marginalized. People who are homeless definitely suffer the greatest amount of disease, chronic illnesses.
So at this time, we are going to light a candle and pay tribute and honor those lives that have been lost due to this pandemic. It's been 35 years. It's been 35 years.
40.
Yeah.
40 years. Wow.
It's the 40th anniversary.
40th anniversary of HIV and AIDS being introduced to the world. And so many people have been lost. So many lives have been lost. So let's take this moment of silence. All righty. Well, that concludes our program for this evening. Once again, thank you so much, Dr. Banerjee. Thank you, Deb.
Thanks for the invite.
Thank you very much.
This has been a great discussion. We've had a lot of people join us this evening. Great comments and questions. Feel free to like and share this broadcast. It'll be on replay within the next few minutes, so you're free to watch it again or share it with a friend. Dr. Banerjee, how can people get in touch with you if they needed to?
They can call Medstar Good Samaritan Hospital at 443-444-5835. And we'll be happy to talk with anybody.
And Deb?
The same. You can call Chase Brexton. Don't ask me to say the number.
Chase Brexton.
I work at 3 of the centers: Columbia, Baltimore, mainly at Baltimore, and Eastern Shore, and they can get you in touch with me.
Absolutely. And please keep us aware of what's going on with you in the commission so that we can support.
Okay, thanks. I will.
Absolutely.
What position are you? What's the position, Deb?
LGBTQ commission.
Oh,
It's
fantastic.
going to be like a caucus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's awesome. All right. Thank you all again for joining us this evening. Thank you again, Dr. Banerjee and Deb, and my beautiful beta baby, Soror Sabrina Garrett. So happy to have you here, and we will see you all next time. Have a great evening.
Have a
Bye
great
bye.
evening.
Bye bye.